But third time's lucky, I think they say, don't they? So hopefully next time it'll be absolutely perfect. We're not far short tonight, but it'll be absolutely perfect. So tonight, we've got a bit of a variation tonight. We've got a speaker, we've got a quiz, and we've got Christmas refreshments and a bumper raffle. So that can't be bad, can it? Can I thank everybody that came to the lunch on Monday? That was very well attended, and I think everybody enjoyed. I would like to thank, wherever she is again, Sarah, who did most of the donkey work. I had the easy bits. All I had to do was make a telephone call and say how money for how and give them the menus. Sarah collated the information, just passed it to me, collected all the money, and you know, I had an easy ride actually. So Sarah did that, so I was very grateful to Sarah. That was wonderful. Tonight, as I said, we have one of our own, Mike, Chairman of the Vice Chairman. I was almost right, not quite. Yeah, Mike is the Vice Chairman of the Society. And I'm pleased to say that he's looking a lot better. He's not enjoyed very good health just recently, but he's here tonight with a smile on his face, raring to go. All I would say is we're testing out a new sound system tonight. If you can't hear, please do let us know. What? We need it. I've already done that one. That's why I ignored you. So do let us know, because if we need to fine-tune it, we can fine-tune it. But you know, we have had one or two comments in the past that people have had difficulty in hearing. So there we go. So it's Mike Hatch to start off with, and he's talking about Rhuddlan from, we'll all remember this, of course, from 1190 until 1310 AD. So Mike, the floor is yours.
Good evening. I'm not sure who wrote the press release for the Daily Post today, but to describe this talk as illustrated is rather gilding the lily. Most things left visible after 700 years are big enough to walk around. I've run up a few copies of the records I'm going to talk about, and it's a short talk. Rez's setup is good, but afterwards I'll answer questions, if that's okay with you. As this is the Christmas meeting, I'm going to introduce you to some of those who were in Rhuddlan at Christmas times over 700 years ago. Although most of the street names have changed over the years, the streets are still there: Pepper Street, Harding Street, High Street, Castle Street, Pillory Street and Bridge Street. The layout of the town is little changed, though Church Street would have looked very new at the end of this period. On your screen you can see the castle as it probably looked, gleaming white, soon after it was built, dominating the surrounding town. The normal residents of Rhuddlan, some 75 burgesses and their families, in 1292, are named in the records, as you can see from the copies. As are the nobles ordered to Rhuddlan with their retinues and men-at-arms in 1283 and 1294-5. Other residents of the town would have included the castle garrison with their domestics. Probably, I think, about 30 in total, the garrison and the domestics. The Dominican clergy of the abbey, the friars preachers, the Knights Templars of Spittal, the hospital founded by Edward in 1279, and the incumbent priest of the town, Richie whose prospects would have probably been enhanced if the Pope had agreed to move the cathedral from St Asaph to Rhuddlan, but he didn't. Between December 1282 and January 1283, with the knights who came to Rhuddlan, the population was enhanced by over another 5,000 men. 1,000 brought from Shropshire, 2,000 brought from Cheshire, 1,000 brought from the southeast marches, 400 lances, that's mounted men-at-arms, who came with the knights, 210 mounted and 1,300 foot crossbowmen, who were Gascon mercenaries, probably speaking mainly or only French. On top of the official members, there's going to be blacksmiths, armourers, fletchers, cooks, stable hands, with other camp followers, including no doubt ladies of the night, providing comfort for the overwhelmingly male contingent. Possibly Marjorie of Brayton, given a week to leave the neighbourhood for stealing, was one of them. See plea 128. You may wonder where I'm getting the facts. They're all included in the plea rolls held in Rhuddlan in November 1284 and Iseth in 1285. Over these years, there are also about 300 working to divert the river through the marshes towards the sea. This aerial photograph shows how the work was completed in long straight strips and then cutting on curves to let the water through. All done by pick and shovel. With 1,000 horses, you'd have to be very careful where you put your feet. One of the effects of these influxes was to run short of coin. Counterfeiting took place, see plea 127, and leather coins with small silver rivets were introduced to ease the situation. Between then and the present day, at least 2 hoards were found, one in the castle and one in a field belonging to the church, vicarage. And they were recorded many years ago by Edward Fluid in his Parochia. I can tell you about some of the residents. One of the knights banneret was Eustace de Hatch, who with his wife and miss was in charge of the king's daughters when he was away in Gascony, and who also set up the initial construction work at Carnarvon. I wish I could say that I was a descendant of his, but although I found out a lot about him, I've nothing but some possible hearsay evidence which sounds convincing but it's not proof. One of the main burgesses of the town, the second wealthiest in 1292, Burgess number 69, was Milo the Mason, first noted as a burgess in 1281. So it's safe to assume that despite his Welsh name, he was a loyal supporter of Edward, and had probably been working on the castle since the construction started in 1277. Edward kept Christmas at Rhuddlan in 1283, and Milo probably met him as the king paid out compensation to local churches for damage done in 1282, when Ainion, the bishop of St Asaph, excommunicated Edward's soldiers for burning his cathedral. In 1284, Milo acknowledged receipt of 50 marks, which is was then £33.33 for repairs to Rhuddlan Church. The old one, remains of which are found in the school grounds. As you'll hear, Milo was still going strong in 1310, by which time he'd been an adult in Rhuddlan for over 30 years. At times he'd been a bit of a rogue. In plea number 124, his wife Alice laid a complaint against William the tailor, possibly Burgess number 10, that he had assaulted and wounded Milo. In 1303, Milo had to answer and explain what he'd done with the money paid to him by the king to repair the old church in 1284, and also another 50 shillings. He was distrained with 4 other Rhuddlan burgesses: Stephen de Tudderman, William de Lee, Alan Leclerc, and William Warinny. This was 19 years later, but as nothing more is recorded, if it was dodgy, they got away with it. In 1304 or 1305, he was summoned to answer Elena, the widow of John de Stubbs, in that he had not kept an agreement with her how to build a new house on land she had leased to him. He defends himself, and the plea goes before a jury which clears him. Elena is liable to a fine, but she's pardoned because of her poverty. As a landowner who had leased land at no cost to Milo, for a term of 8 years, on the agreement that at his own cost he would build and keep in repair a new house, she had not fared well out of the business deal. He had not built the house, and in consequence she had suffered damage to the amount of 100 shillings and brought suit against him. I wonder how many friends he had on the jury. The last reference I can find with Milo is after a shipwreck in 1310, when he received 2 tons of wine recovered from the wreck. As a ton is about 250 gallons, Milo did all right. We can deduce some things about Elena. By Welsh law, prior to the Statute of Rhuddlan, she would not have been allowed to have been endowed with the inheritance of a late husband. According to the Arundel version of the statute, she would have had dower of land if her husband had held it by military service, or by charter, or by English tenure. Her husband John does not seem to have been on the 1292 list of freeholders. When putting this talk together, I realised I've not found him on any list of burgesses, which might account for why she lost the case. I don't know. In 1285, Alan Sargent was given the place opposite the north gate of the castle, commonly called Reherber, perhaps where the Castle Inn now stands, and 10 acres of wood in Cricking. Thomas de Legally and his wife Yvette are mentioned in plea 132. The above mentioned were Rhuddlan residents who we know something about. But the tumultuous times we're talking of, there are a lot of names in the area. The diagram lists them. English kings on the left-hand side. John, Henry III and Edward I all spent time in the area. John's daughter Joan was married to Llewellyn Fawr, but got caught playing the field with William de Braose. When Llewellyn found out, he had William hung at the Manor of Croyken on the 2nd of May 1230. It's not certain where Croyken was, but as Llewellyn was at Denby on the 15th of May, to my mind, it's possible that it could have taken place at Crickin, which on the 1831 Ordnance Survey map is spelt C-R-I-K-I-N, whereas Croyken is C-R-O-K-E-I-N. David, the son of Joan and Llewellyn, later married Isabella de Bros. William, the guy who was hung, his daughter. I must have made some good breakfast conversation. After David's death in 1246, she stayed at Dizzle Castle for one night, whilst on her way to a nunnery in England. Whilst writing up this talk, I was checking on the details given and found that King John had married twice, both wives being called Isabella. His first wife, Isabella of Gloucester, had no children, and they divorced on grounds of consanguinity, as they were both descendants of Henry I. As this would have had no relevance to the above, except that her sister Amira was the mother-in-law of the uncle of the William de Bros hung by Llewellyn. Henry III was the uncle of David, and his sister Eleanor married Simon de Montfort. And they had another granddaughter called Eleanor also. Eleanor married David's nephew, Llewellyn the Last. His younger brother David married Elizabeth Ferrers, whom was an effigy in Caerwes Church. She was the granddaughter of King John's widow by her second marriage. And Llewellyn the Last was killed by Edward's soldiers, and David, his brother, was hung, drawn and quartered at Shrewsbury on the orders of Edward. Life was pretty brutal at this time. I don't have any evidence of the following at Rhuddlan, but the Hope Castle accounts of 1282 list the names of 25 heads, names of people paid for bringing 25 heads in. The one on 30th of July might interest you for the election tomorrow. And of course, Hope Castle was not many miles from Rhuddlan. And of course, Llewellyn's head was brought to Edward at Rhuddlan on its way to be exposed in London in December 1282. With that, I wish you all a Merry Christmas, and I'll answer any questions. Now, I know the quiz is now set up, so if you want to go through a few at a time to see it, I'll answer any questions you've got while other people see it. Okay? Could everyone hear?
Are there any questions for Mike?
How did they feed all these the castle at the time? Because there's a lot of men, wasn't it? People. You know, must have pitched the food or something.
Well, apart from the cattle that the Welsh were supposed to have stolen in 1282, there's quite a lot of clues about that.
I'll hear you. I'll hear you.
So,
Just hold it.
the cattle which were supposed to be stolen by the Welsh, and there's quite a bit in the pleas about that, they had a lot of cattle at the time, and I should imagine they didn't pay for anything, they just took it, yeah. But I don't know, quite honestly.
One of the quick sayings or anything like that.
One of the things that is quite interesting is one of the people mentioned in the shipwreck is somebody of Quiver. And of course Quiver, the farm there, where Sainsbury's now is, obviously was named after that area. Anyway, sorry, I'm not. Anyone got any other questions?
Yeah.
Mike, in your research, have you ever come across anything about whether the moats in Rhuddlan Castle were full with water? There's always been a doubt whether they were dry moats or whether there was water in them.
I think, and I'm not sure about this, but I think the tower going across to the Abbey was built later, and I think the water stopped there. You know, it was it could go up tidal up to it, and then it stopped. But that was built a bit later than the main castle, and I think that the rest of it was dry round to the other side. But I haven't really seen very much of that.
I must say, I'm always fascinated that that monument just over this side of the bridge, with the soldiers sitting in it. Why on earth the Welsh allowed Norman soldiers to be sitting there and represent Welsh people who've been sitting.
Yeah, well, I think we better not get onto the subject, because I think that Mr. Corbyn might have some explanations. But he's certainly English if he's related to the one I found.
Take them away after
But, yes,
Was Crickin a hamlet at all, a village?
well, I don't think so. It seems to have been probably a manor, but it seems to have been given as a clump of land gift, you know, as a lease.
Because there's a mount there with supposed to be a cross on it, or is it just a stump of a stone there now?
Yeah, well, of course, that's Crickin was where the friars preacher they lived near Crickin. They were near Crickin, so that's probably where they were based. So you had a lot of religious. Well, you had three that I've mentioned. At Crickin, the Abbey, and of course the Knights Templars. You know, it's quite a big part of life in those days. Oh, that's me. Well, is anyone else? If anyone wants to look into any of this more, I have got most of the stuff on files. If anyone wants to, you know, read up more about it. I think Reg might as well.
Okay, right, if there are no more questions, then our next meeting is on before I get knocked out. January the 8th, it'll be here, and it'll be the Titanic conspiracy. And if you haven't got, these are available with all of the presentations that we have for 2020. So, Reg, are you...
Yes, I'm ready.
Reg is fit and ready for you to go and...